All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our workshop this morning. My name is Victoria Berry. I'm the director at the Family Focus Resource Center. And today we are collaborating with one of our partners at Cal State University Northridge in the College of Education. Our presenter is Dr. Connie Wong, and she is a professor of early childhood special education. And we are going to talk today about something that's fairly new in California and is really being rolled out across all schools, and that's universal preschool, and also an expansion of transitional kindergarten, or TK, and inclusion opportunities. So I want to thank Dr. Wong for being here today. Thanks, Connie. And you just take it away.
Okay, thank you very much for that nice introduction. Welcome, everyone, to this workshop. As stated, and you can see on the slides, this is the top things to know about universal preschool, transitional kindergarten, and we'll talk about some inclusion opportunities. So our schedule today for the talk, just a quick little introduction, and then some of the questions that I feel like are some of the top things that you might want to know about TK and preschool. You know, what is preschool versus TK? What is universal pre-K? Where can my 4-year-old go? How can IEP goals be targeted? And how do I decide where to have my child go? And then we'll do a general open questions and answer period. I believe I have about an hour. And so I'll go for a little bit and then definitely put questions in the chat. And then we'll open up for just a general Q&A at the end, right? So go ahead and next slide. Thanks. So who am I? I am, as mentioned, faculty in the Early Childhood Special Education Department at CSUN. So what that means is I do teach classes for those individuals who are looking to get a teaching credential to work with young children who are at risk or have a developmental delay or a disability. And they're aiming to become teachers, credentialed teachers. And then I also do research on young children. And my specific area that I'm interested is on early social, cognitive, and communication development. So family member, I sort of wanted to get a gauge of who all of you are. So I wanted to know if we have family members or professionals in the audience. And so if you are live here, go ahead and just put it in the chat if you are a family member. And then I'll assume everybody else is a professional, just so I can figure out. And some of you may be both. As I see already, some people are both. I myself am both. I am a mother of 3 children, and which keep me busy. And I have also, in addition to being a faculty member at CSUN, I used to teach in the classroom. I taught kindergarten, special education classroom, in kindergarten, and then in preschool, and then also worked with infants and toddlers in a home-based program. So I've done a little bit of everything, and looks like we've got a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds too. And great, thank you for adding in some of the ages that you're of your children. So I know too, if we are looking for, if I do have family members of children who are looking to start or be in preschool or kindergarten, my youngest is no longer that age. That's good and bad. Uh, she's now in 3rd grade. I can't believe it. It goes fast. All right. So it would be great too now to think about, just to start thinking about, as we get into this topic of preschool and kindergarten, if you remember or can think about what are some of the things that you remember about preschool and kindergarten. So if you're live, go ahead and share that in the chat. And if you are at home watching at a different time, take a moment to think about those memories of preschool and kindergarten, if you do remember, because as I see already, things have changed, and their times are different now, but there are some things that you may remember about preschool. I remember in preschool, running around in the playground and then hiding in the little playhouse in the yard whenever there was somebody that, when there was somebody new that was coming around, because I did not like new people. But a lot of play. Okay, all right, so thank you for adding in. Lots of people remember playing a lot, taking naps. I do remember nap time in kindergarten too. They don't often have that anymore these days. Okay, so to go into thinking about preschool, you hear a lot of terms. And with all the changes that have been made in the state lately, you hear a lot more terminology going around with preschool, transitional kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, and then a whole bunch of different acronyms. So we will start just with preschool versus TK, and TK stands for transitional kindergarten. So for preschool, in general, we think about preschool as those programs that are designed for young children about ages 3 to 4 years old. Sometimes can include 5-year-olds, and nowadays there sort of can include some 2-year-olds. That some preschool programs will take children as early as 2 years and 9 months, and even some programs will take children as early as 2.5 years old. Within that category of preschool, sometimes it's further broken down into preschool versus pre-kindergarten. And pre-kindergarten then refers to usually those 4 and 5-year-olds, sort of that last year of preschool right before kindergarten. So people used to refer to those programs as pre-K. And we'll go into what our terminology today is in California in a couple slides. Preschool is generally not part of the public school district system. So what that really means is that you usually have to pay for it. It's a program that you pay for. However, sometimes you do find preschool programs that are located in elementary schools, or they can be located in communities, community-based programs, or we may have private preschools. They may be daycare centers, and there are also Head Start programs. And Head Start programs is one that if you qualify to attend a Head Start program, that is federally funded. So bottom line, that program is free. But usually most of the preschool programs cost money. In preschool, though, there are usually specific state licensing guidelines. And so we will have, California has a set of licensing guidelines that the preschool programs will have to follow. In general, preschool programs are usually more play-based. However, sometimes those pre-K programs, those 4 to 5-year-old programs that are right before kindergarten, they may focus a little bit more on kindergarten readiness skills and early academics. Now, shifting over to TK, to transitional kindergarten. Transitional kindergarten is usually for children that are turning 5. And traditionally, it was for children that were turning 5 between September and December. Throughout the laws that have changed, and we'll again go through that when we go into California, of what's happening in California, that window is extended. But what you should know about TK is that it is part of the public school district system. So what that means is that if it is part of this district system, this TK program, that means that there's no cost involved. So you do not pay tuition or enrollment fees to attend TK. And that's because TK is officially the first year of a 2-year kindergarten program. So you think about kindergarten, and kindergarten is 1 year, right? You go to kindergarten, then you go to first and second and so on. TK takes that and adds an extra year. And so instead of just going to kindergarten for 1 year, these children are going to kindergarten for 2 years. And that first year is then called TK. So TK is officially kindergarten, but it's the first of a 2-year kindergarten program. And of course, not all kids will attend TK under this umbrella. And so you have students who will go and do kindergarten for 1 year, or you'll have children who do it for 2 years, and those are the TK students. Because it is part of the public school system, the school district system, they follow the public school guidelines. So a TK class does not follow the preschool state licensing guidelines, but follows the public school guidelines. So sometimes you may see that there are differences if you're transitioning from preschool to a TK setting. You know, why are some of these rules different? And it's because it's no longer under the preschool licensing guidelines, but rather follows the public school guidelines. And then because TK is the first year of a kindergarten program, it focuses more on early academics and also kindergarten readiness for that second year of kindergarten. Now, however, preschool or TK, whichever program it is, both programs, because you are working with young children, they both should be using developmentally appropriate practices, which means that we are looking for teaching strategies, or the strategies that are used in those classrooms should be developmentally appropriate. They are at the level of the different children, so that it targets wherever their level is to bring them up to different levels. So it's fluid, it's dynamic. All right, next slide, please. So then what is preschool versus TK in California? So in California, both preschool and TK, they actually are combined together under this umbrella term of pre-kindergarten. So the information on the previous slide where I said generally pre-K is for 5-year-old programs in preschool. Well, in California, we are now terming pre-kindergarten to cover preschool programs and TK. Everything that is before the official kindergarten. So hence pre-kindergarten, before kindergarten. This is can be very confusing to a lot of people. So just get it, just think about if you hear pre-K, That does include preschool and TK. However, most times if people are talking about TK, they will say TK. And if people are saying preschool, they're talking about preschool. So preschool programs, they are some of the preschool programs, the California State Preschool Program, sometimes you'll hear it as CSPP, but they're the California State Preschool Programs, are the ones that we see in California. They can also be called child development programs too, as noted in the chat. But other preschool programs that are available in kindergarten, in California, sorry, would include Head Start, community-based preschools, and private preschool programs. And in preschool, in California, they go by the California Preschool Framework, which use the preschool learning foundations. And I'll go through that in a moment. In TK, it is for all children turning 5 between September 2nd and February 2nd. So this is where we are right now in California. It is part of the public school system. It is still the first year of a 2-year kindergarten program. And because it is officially part of the kindergarten program, it does use the preschool learning foundations, but it also refers to the California K-12 content standards. So those are the kindergarten content standards that we have. And again, I'll go through that too. You may notice that I have written down preschool and in parentheses / transitional kindergarten learning foundations. And that is because the preschool learning foundations have been available for the last about 10 years. And they're just updating it and renaming it to become preschool / transitional kindergarten learning foundations, just to emphasize that all the pre-kindergarten programs, the preschool and TK, will use these learning foundations. And then the TK programs will also refer to the California kindergarten content standards. All right, we'll go on to the next slide. And we can talk about those foundations. So the preschool learning foundations are built off of the California Preschool Framework. Both are available online for free. And I've included the link on the bottom of the slide. And so that you can go and look at it. We'll go backwards. Oops. We can go, there we go. Go backwards. One more. There we go. Thank you. So the preschool learning foundations is sort of a fancy way to say that these are the preschool state standards. And so what it does is in this book, there are 3 volumes, and it describes the learning and development of children from birth through age 5. And with the release of the transitional kindergarten version, it will go from birth through age 5.5. And so in this preschool learning foundations, it focuses, basically it's a list and gives examples of what young children are expected to know and what they're expected to be able to do during different age periods from birth through 5. And really focusing on age 3 to 5, actually. The birth to 2-year-old, they have their own separate infant toddler learning foundations. So in this list of basically of what everybody is expected to know, it does reflect a more developmental process. And they're called foundations because it takes a more developmental perspective in thinking about what are really the skills that we want preschoolers to know to have a good foundation so that they're able to engage in the academic learning once they reach kindergarten or attend elementary school. So I have included a couple snapshots, and you can kind of see how there are many different domains, and in the different domains, they have different categories of skills and knowledge, and they're broken down into two separate age groups, sort of what is expected to be learned by the end of 4 years old and what is expected by the end of 5 years old. And then what you don't see is a list of examples of what they may entail. But you can see that they look at, this is not the standard reading, writing, math that you would expect in the state standards for elementary school and beyond, but looking at more of the foundational skills. And because there are 3 volumes, you can see in this other graphic that I have on the right, how the different volumes are broken down. So if you're particularly interested in a specific area, you can look at those. And looking at the first one does focus on social emotion. Okay, and so with these preschool learning foundations, they are being updated to be called the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten Learning Foundations. And it is anticipated that an online version will be released this summer. So, and in this revision, they're really just expanding the age range, and they're adding more focus on diversity and inclusion within those foundations. So it'll be exciting to take a look and see what changes are going to be made. Okay, next slide. So when we talk about TK, we have to think about the preschool learning foundations, but we also have the teachers will also refer to the kindergarten content standards. So while the end goal for kindergarten the end goal of TK isn't necessarily to learn and master all of these skills, because it is it's the first year of a 2-year program. It's good to see which direction that TK class is heading to prepare that child for the next official year of kindergarten. So the kindergarten content standards are within the California content standards, and they are on this website that I've put here, and it's now been put in the chat too. Thank you. In these content standards, it basically is volumes of books. They're all available for free on the website to download as PDFs. And it establishes the knowledge and skills that are the educational goals for each grade level, from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. So these volumes are separated by subject areas, and I've just listed some of the more common areas. So you see the first 2 are English language arts and literacy and mathematics. And those are what's also known as the Common Core standards. So if you hear that term, these are the goals that we are looking at. And it's Common Core, for anybody who is not familiar with it. It's just a way of building, these standards were rewritten and built to have more flexibility in the approaches to English language arts and literacy learning, as well as mathematics. Another key area to note is that there is a whole volume on English language development that is also a target and what teachers also need to refer to, especially in California, where we have so many multilingual learners, that we have lots of children that speak a second language, if not more than that. There are also lots of different areas: health education, physical education, visual and performing arts, history, social science, library science, and more. You can take a look at the website if you want to take a look at it all. And in each volume, then it begins with a description, an overview of that subject area, and then goes in by grade level, what are those expected goals that should be achieved at each year. And so looking for kindergarten, then it's always the first one that you will look through to be able to refer to and see what are the targets. And in the school system, generally the teachers will target all those standards within that whole school year. In TK, the curriculum is modified because, again, they have 2 years to complete this work. And so usually the modified curriculum is usually something that the teacher decides in conjunction with the kindergarten team, as well as any other TK team members and other school personnel as needed. In this way, then we also see lots of curriculum that is available out for teachers that school districts may adopt, that hit and will align with these kindergarten standards. And also there are published curriculum that also align with the preschool learning foundations. And so it's can be helpful to see what curriculum that teachers are using to teach these classes, so you have a general idea of what is expected to be targeted in a regular school year. And this is something that's important to note, just in the sense of determining IEP goals. So once you start thinking about what are specific goals for your child that you want your child to learn, then you at least have a basis of know what is already being covered, and then figuring out what does your child need additional support on to help meet those grade level expectations. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So those are the standards, foundations and standards. So then we know what pre-kindergarten is. Pre-kindergarten is preschool and TK in California. But now we hear this term all the time about universal pre-kindergarten. So what is universal pre-kindergarten? So it is a goal in California for all 4-year-old children by 2024 to 25 to be enrolled in a pre-kindergarten program. This means that that child, for all 4-year-old children, will either be in transitional kindergarten in TK, or some other mixed delivery program with maybe a state preschool program or Head Start or other types of different early childhood programs. There are a couple of things in California that are happening to help reach this goal. Starting with the preschool side, in the California state preschool programs, there's a goal for...
I'm sorry, this is the interpreter. I got kicked out somehow. I'm back in, but I'm not on the interpreting now. So if I can be assigned again, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
You can never tell with the internet.
Okay, Shelley, I'll take care of that.
Thank you. Okay.
Mhm.
Are we good?
I still have not been assigned. Still not showing that I'm assigned.
I assigned you.
It's not
Okay,
on my,
well, let's, I'll work on it.
okay.
Thank you.
I saw that it was ended, and so maybe it will be restarted soon. Okay. So in the pre-kindergarten, okay, so in the state preschool programs, one of the goals in California is that by 2024 to 25 school year, that 10% of all enrollment will be reserved for children with disabilities. So that means that the preschool programs will have 10% that are saved.
Que están guardados para niños con discapacidades. Eso significa que esos salones serían salones de inclusión. Hay también un programa de expansión de inclusión en California, que eso básicamente significa que están dando más dinero para apoyar salones de inclusión en esos programas de estatales. Y eso puede ser dinero, fondos que se
It's fine.
utilizan para mejorar la infraestructura.
I can't. I'm hearing
No, it's good.
Spanish. Okay, but I selected English and I'm hearing Spanish.
I'm on my end. It looks like I'm in.
See,
Okay.
if hearing.
Yeah,
everyone
is
hearing?
is everybody hearing the correct language?
Yes, yes, we
Yes.
are.
Okay,
Okay,
great. All right,
great.
sorry about that. Let's carry on.
thank you. Okay, so the Inclusive Early Education Expansion Program has funds to help with the infrastructure, which includes staffing, which is a biggie. And that staffing could mean more support in the classroom, more instructional assistance, or could mean hiring a specific teacher or staff member to work as an inclusion facilitator or consultant, to check on all those classrooms, to provide support to the general education preschool teachers. These funds are also earmarked for professional development for those teachers, to increase their understanding of how to support children, all children of different abilities and levels and so forth. So with regard to enrollment, there are also funds that are being that are increased to help enroll children with disabilities into these state preschool programs to fill those 10% spots. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. And really to expanding access to all the 3-year-olds to really encourage 3-year-olds to go to these preschool programs. Remember that the state preschool programs are not free, so that's why there is additional assistance and stipends and other funding sources that can help support more children to attend preschool. And with the idea and with the research backing that preschool is important. Hold on. Looks like I have to confirm my speaking language. Let me, or maybe I should just ignore this. we'll just go from here. Okay, and also with the funds from the government, looking for more, providing more support for multilingual learners. So once again, the California State Preschool programs are not free. Usually has some, some adjustments based off of income, and those are worked out with the different preschool programs. Knowing that too, that an alternative to the state preschool programs is the opportunity to enroll in Head Start programs, which are free if the family is eligible. And then there are other community-based preschool programs, and of course, there's also other private preschool programs and daycares. With regard to TK, the goal is by 2025 to 26, the goal for our state is to have all students that are turning 4 by September 1st to be enrolled in TK. There is funding coming down to increase the adult to student ratio to be 1 adult to 12 students. And TK is a free program. And so that is an important thing to note, especially if finances are an issue. Now, families of 4-year-olds can choose what they would like their child to attend, a state preschool program or other program, or to attend TK. Both programs are voluntary and they're optional, but because the TK is free, we are trying to encourage more children to go to TK, because we know that it is so important to have really great early education experiences. Next slide. So switching over to just kind of think back about special education. Special education under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, otherwise known as IDEA, means that all children should receive a free and appropriate public education. That means it's free. So if a child has a disability that fits into one of the eligibility criteria categories that is written into the law, then that child has the right to a free and appropriate public education, and also has the right to have these other items. The least restrictive environment, which we know or has been abbreviated as LRE, and least restrictive environment is the one that we usually think is mostly related to inclusion, right? That children with disabilities should be able to participate as much as possible with their typically developing peers. So they should be in places that other children go to if they did not have a disability. So really focusing on that as in making a placement decision. Children have the right to have an IEP, which is an individualized education program or plan. And I know some of you, this is things that you already know. Some of you, this may be, if you don't know about it, that's okay. This is a quick overview, and there are lots of other resources from the Family Focus Resource Center that go into IEPs and this whole process of special education. And then the last two main points of the law is non-discriminatory multidisciplinary assessment and having procedural safeguards. Just so that you all have a sense of the eligibility criteria under IDEA, it does focus on children ages 3 to 22 years old. So from preschool all the way through high school. And the eligibility categories, there are 13 of them, and I've listed them right there so that you can see them. And once that decision has been made that a child can qualify for special education services under one of those categories, then they can receive services. One option is to attend special education classes, and that is from age 3 to 22. So a school district must offer a preschool special education class for free, and preschool special education services for free. And the preschool special education classes are ones that, you know, are taught by a credentialed education specialist. So a special education teacher usually has several instructional assistants depending on the size of the class, and it is for all children who have an IEP. So this type of classroom would be noted as the most restrictive type of classroom, because it is just a separate classroom for all children with an IEP, and that they're all together. And so just know that that is an option, and that for most places it is an option. And we'll go to the next slide to see what are some of the other options. Okay, so one of the other options that you may have heard about are things called blended classes or collaboration classes. Some people may also call them inclusion classes. And you may not really understand what it's all about. Typically in collaboration classes, those are classes that utilize a co-teaching approach, which means that there are two teachers in one classroom. So instead of a special education classroom that just has one special education teacher, and as opposed to the state preschool program that we were talking about, or the TK program that we were talking about before, where it is all taught by one general education teacher, this type of class has two teachers, a general education teacher and a special education teacher, and they co-teach. They are equals and teach the class together. So they plan together, and in a classroom like this, then if your child was attending there, they would have two teachers, and both teachers come in as equals, but have different specializations. The general education teacher may be being more familiar with the preschool learning foundations and development, and the state standards, and the special education teacher really having the expertise knowledge in providing supports and adapting curriculum and instruction to provide each child with the support that they need to succeed in the class. This type of approach can look differently in different classrooms. Even though they are equivalent teachers, they can take on different formats, where maybe one teacher is teaching all of the classes. And excuse this diagram because no one really sits in desks like this in rows, but it gives a nice overview of where the teachers are. So it would be, so just think about that. They're preschoolers sitting on carpet squares or something like that. And so you could see that in one model, one teacher would be teaching the whole class, and the second teacher would be maybe more observing. and taking notes and recording data and assessing the children. You can have models where that looks like stations or centers where we break children up into groups, and one group may be working with an instructional assistant or independently, and each of the two teachers have a group and children rotate around the different stations to do different activities and get targeted with different skills as they rotate through the different centers or stations. There are different models where one teacher could take half the class, the other teacher takes the other half, and they can switch. Or one teacher is taking the majority of the class, the other teacher takes a small group. Or the two teachers sit in the front together and teach the whole class together. And then there are also models where one teacher does all the planning for the activities and one teacher acts more like an assistant, and then they take turns and switch either by day or by activity. So in this model, it can look a lot of different ways, but the key thing is that there are two teachers and they should be communicating frequently because they are planning together and working with all the children. And in a classroom like this, even if your child was in this classroom and has a disability and an IEP, they still have two teachers, the general education teacher and the special education teacher. It's not the case where they say, oh, well, if you have an IEP, then you belong just to the special education teacher. And you don't have an IEP, you belong just to the general education teacher. That is not the case. All children belong to both teachers, or both teachers belong to all the children, regardless of whether they have an IEP or not. So, where can my 4-year-old go? Let's see, okay, so I think I see a question in the chat, but I think this may help answer that question. So you have a 4-year-old. Where should I do with my 4-year-old now? So there are different options. So you can see that you can decide if you want your child to go to preschool or to attend TK. So in preschool, they can attend the state preschool program, a state preschool program class, a Head Start class, a blended collaboration class, other program class like the community-based programs, private preschools, daycare centers, etc. Or they can go to a special education class. In TK, they can go to the general TK classroom, a blended or collaboration class, or they can go to a special education class. The ones that are circled in blue are what's more considered the inclusive classrooms. So these are opportunities where children with disabilities can be integrated into these classrooms. Now, in the state preschool program and the general TK classroom, so the top row for both of those classrooms, again, are taught by just one teacher, one general education teacher. And in the state preschool programs, and this is the same for Head Start programs too, is 10% of those spots in the classroom are reserved for children with disabilities. But again, there's only one general education teacher. Now, the number of instructional assistants will differ and may differ too, depending on a child's IEP.
Connie, one thing I wanted to point out is, because we, talk to parents about this too, if they have these multiple options, how do they know which one to pick? Sometimes they're looking for a full day school program. So often the California state preschool programs or private preschools are half day, maybe 3 hours. But you might find a Head Start program that combines the preschool with, full day of childcare for working parents. So that's one consideration. And sometimes the TK classrooms go till, 2 o'clock. It's considered an all-day class.
Full day. Definitely. Thank you. Yes. Yes, they will vary. And so it's important to check out and see, all those other details that can go as part of the decision-making process. So I made some notes that, a special education classroom is usually on an elementary campus. The state preschool programs, Head Start classrooms, they may or may not be on elementary campuses. But usually the other community-based preschools or private preschools, they're not on an elementary campus. And the reason why you may want to think about whether or not it is on an elementary campus is really has to do with exposure to other preschool age children or other 4-year-olds, so that you have an idea of, what are some of the interactions that could be possible. On the TK side, usually they're all on elementary school campuses because, again, it is the first year of a 2-year kindergarten program. Okay, so that's pretty much.
I wanted to read a question that a parent wrote in the chat to me, and she's asking about the blended or collaboration classes. If a 3-year-old child has an IEP, now she's talking about a 3-year-old child has an IEP, do I have the right to request for them to be in an inclusive preschool classroom? If the district says no, for example, they only have one special ed preschool class in this school district, a small school district, that combines all special education students, that they might get some pushback on that. But this parent wants their child to be in a regular education class so they can get that typical peer interaction.
Definitely. And that is an issue that is coming about. And I think that that is something too, that with the push on inclusion, more districts are being sort of forced to offer more opportunities. Now, with a small school district, and if they're putting everybody with an IEP in a special education classroom, it is more difficult to deal with the district anyway. And but you still do have the right to say that you want a more inclusive setting that by law, the least restrictive environment that your child is should be able to have a more inclusive experience. And being 3 years old, which makes it a little bit more difficult, especially if there is not a state preschool program within the district or located in or collaborating with the school district, or a Head Start classroom where some of those inclusive experiences could happen, then you have to work with the district in seeing what other opportunities they can offer. And unfortunately, because it is a small school district, they probably may not be able to open up a classroom specifically for your child, but that does not preclude them from letting you find a different preschool program that will, like a general preschool, either a community-based preschool or a preschool, a state preschool that's located nearby, that they should be supporting, that they should be supporting your child to go into that school. So it is a right that you have to ask for inclusive experiences. So and yes, it may be a battle if it is with a smaller school district, but it is within your right to ask for it. And so in TK, that is also that is something that in a TK setting, that having these different options there, then also the school district should have those TK options available. So if you do have a 4-year-old, then you should be able to go to a TK classroom. Because TK is part of public school, you should not be denied enrollment into TK. Now, there are a lot of issues, with, especially at the beginning of this school year, when TK classrooms were just opening up and there was a scramble for teachers, and there still sort of is. And we'll probably see that as the program keeps getting rolling out and admitting and changing the age guidelines so that more children can join in. Then that's where if a district should not be able to, a district cannot tell you that, oh, well, we don't have an open classroom, so that you cannot go to TK. It is up to the district to find a TK program for your child. If all the classrooms are filled, then they need to figure out, how to hire, how to find space, or how to ask a neighboring school district, or finding some way to help your 4-year-old child that wants to go to TK.
Yeah. We also hear about that from parents. I'm sure you do, Connie, as well, about okay, my child just turned 3 or they'll turn 4 and they're eligible for TK, but there's a waiting list for a new TK classroom because they do have these ratios that they have to meet. So that can be tough. Your child is eligible, but there's no room for them to go. So I hope that that would, as more TK classrooms get rolled out, that will be helped. I also want to encourage parents and professionals too to let parents know that they should pre-register their kids for pre-K and K. This is the time of year, February.
I was just about to say, this is the time to do
Schools
it.
are registering children for pre-K, K, and all schools now. So don't wait till, August to contact the school and say, I'd like my child to go to pre-K or TK. You've got to get in on those registration dates.
Definitely. So school districts are offering, at this time, they're offering some information sessions. So look to your local school district to see. Usually you can find information on the school websites to find information about TK kindergarten registration, and look at those dates and any information sessions that they may have. They're also starting to offer tours at this time. And so it would definitely, go do that. And one thing about registering your child is that you do have to gather all your paperwork together with, the birth certificate and, residency of where you live for your local school district. So it does take some time, but you do want to get on that list because if there is a wait list in that sense, you'll be higher up so that when there is space, as they hire new teachers and find new spaces for a classroom, then you can, get the services as soon as possible.
Right. Okay, I see we have a hand raised. Connie, I'm not sure how many more slides you have. Do you want to keep going
let's-
and take all the questions, or do you want to take one more question?
Let's see, let's go to the next slide. So this slide just goes through some ways in which IEP goals can be targeted in a preschool classroom. And it's just to look at how we really take a naturalistic approach as recommended as best practices in pre-kindergarten classrooms, including TK, is to embed working on the goals throughout the school day, throughout the different activities. And so I'm just gonna leave that there for you as a reference, and that could be a totally different webinar on a different day. And then we'll go to the next slide, which I think is one of the last slides. Yes. So then really, you know, as a last note is to think about, well, how do you decide? There's all these different options. Really think about getting information. So going to the local school districts, finding that information, asking questions, consult with, talk to people, make use of the Family Focus Resource Center, visit classes and programs to get a sense, find out that information about the feelings of the programs, the schools, you know, get a sense if they're half day, whole day, what kind of childcare options are available, discuss and collaborate with team members, and then really think about choosing what works best for your child, you and your family. What works best for the schedule and distance and all of those things, in addition to which would be the best fit for your child. And once a decision is made and you start that program, that your child starts in that program, you know, communicate often with your staff, check in to see how your child is doing. The teacher should be monitoring progress and taking assessments and notes, so that you can discuss again and discuss how the child is doing and how your family is doing. And then you can choose again whether you want to stay where you're at, if you're happy, keep on the same path, or change to something different. So, so then that's sort of how you try to, in general, look at all those different options and come to a decision. Okay, and then we can go to the, I believe is the last slide. The other direction. There we go. And so now we can open it up for questions.
All right. Thank you very much. So we had a question, we had a hand up from Cynthia. So I'm going to ask Cynthia to unmute herself. Cynthia, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, hi Connie, thank you so much. So my question is, because for the 4-year-olds to be in TK, is that like something that changed this last year and is gonna change or is changing this next year? Because at my school district, I only see TK available like for the 5-year-olds. They haven't put for 4-year-olds. So I don't know if they would even let me register him because of the ages. So I don't know if I should contact them and ask. And then my next question, if he does go, my son does go into TK, is TK, so he would go into TK and then he could either do TK again next year or either go to kindergarten depending on how he's doing in maturity level?
So, let's see, first question, with the TK and the age, I would definitely contact the school district to check. The goal is for all 4-year-olds by not this year, but the next school year to be all enrolled or able to enroll in TK. And different school districts will have different rollouts for when that happens. And they get incentives from the state if they meet these deadlines and so forth. And so it's worth it to check with your school district to see where they're at with it. And it also may be just the case that they haven't updated their website. So I would definitely contact the school. For the second question about going to TK, usually, so TK is the first year of a 2-year program. And so once you enroll in TK, it is expected that the next year the child will go into kindergarten. Now, there are definitely exceptions. And if your child's a case as that, then you would be talking to the team members, and it would have to be an adaptation or modification written in with the IEP or just a discussion to decide is that the best choice, and why is that request being made, and looking at the data to determine whether the child needs to go to TK again or go on to kindergarten. But the general pathway is to do TK for 1 year and then kindergarten for the next year.
Thank you so much.
Good. Any other questions?
I had a couple things I wanted to bring up, Connie. One thing I just want to clarify. So transitional kindergarten is not mandatory for students to go to. It's not considered part of compulsory education, right?
It is not. It is
Okay.
optional and
It's
voluntary.
Okay. Just like kindergarten really is.
Just,
optional
yes,
and voluntary.
technically kindergarten is, so you don't
Yeah.
have to attend school until age 6.
Not
So-
that it's not a good idea, but it
Right.
is. And I'm still, when we hear about these wait lists for TK classrooms, it's kind of worrisome because we know that if a student has an IEP, they have to be served under their IEP, but that might not be in a TK class if they don't have room for more TK students, right?
Yes. However, if the team decides that the TK is the best placement,
Mhm.
then they are obligated to put together a TK classroom. And just the same, if you have a 4-year-old that you wanted to enroll into TK and there's no space, yes, they can be placed on a wait list, but that district is required to make space, to find space to make a TK classroom. And again, it could be one where, it may not be at your neighborhood school. It may be a little bit further away, or maybe conjunction with another school district. There are some options, but it is the school district's responsibility to open up these TK classes. Now, of course, we know there's teacher shortages and so forth. So I know we're all sort of, okay, we understand, but it is, their responsibility to do so.
I see. Great. Okay, do we have any more questions for Dr. Wong?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. First of all, the information has been very helpful. It is a little challenging with the school district situation. I guess it all sums up to funding. Here in the Antelope Valley, for example, so my son, I know you answered one of my questions, but he's 3.5. He has an IEP. And so I did the paperwork for the Head Start. He's been waitlisted for 6 months. So basically he hasn't had any services for 6 months. He's not speaking yet. He's very behind in his milestones. So what happens during all this wait time? He's just stuck here at home. As far as things from the regional center, we all know that after they leave the early intervention program, then it's up to just like your insurance to get other services. So there's also a wait list here in the Antelope Valley for speech and OT. So basically he's like on a frozen point right now. It's been 6 months. It's been like the longer 6 months of just waiting, like a waiting game. So is
So-
there anything for him?
So your child is 3.5, is that what you said?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So if your child's over 3, have you contacted the local school district?
I have. I've gone personally, and so that's basically they said there's a wait list for that Head Start. So that's
Oh.
all.
So
Well, Head
they
Start is different. Yeah.
right, Head Start, it does get full and does have wait lists, but it's also a different type of program. So if your child if you have concerns about your child, you should put a request in at the school district for an assessment. And once you put a request in for that assessment, they actually have 60 days to do that assessment and give you a report and call a IEP meeting to discuss those results and put together, and if eligible, put together a plan and a placement for your child to go into.
Okay.
So contact the school district and, and it needs to be a written request. So you could write on a piece of paper, say, I am concerned about these areas for my child. Please assess my child in these areas and give it to the school district. And they need to respond to that and take care of it within 15 days. They need to come back to you and say, okay, well, here's an assessment plan. This is what we will assess your child on. And these are all things that are required by law. So if you do that, then you can start talking about options and still remain on the wait list for Head Start, and and then see whatever can go faster and then also see what's available once you have that meeting to discuss results and so forth, and then you can decide which is the better program for your child.
Okay. So written, I guess an email to that effect is also okay, right? Or written.
Yeah, I think a lot of school districts like to have it in hand.
Okay.
So you kind of have to go to some office and give them the paper. But you can try by email too. And there are also templates available for
We
a
have, yeah.
request.
We
Huh?
have some of those.
Okay.
We have some of those. So Rocio, I'll send that to you by email. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sample
Okay.
letters.
That would be
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Good luck with that.
Thank
That'd
you.
be very frustrating. Oh.
Yeah, it
And
is.
Dr. Wong, I think what's confusing and what was confusing to me is that because I enrolled my son into Head Start because that's all that Palmdale School District offered, and the school is a grantee of CCRC.
Mhm.
So they're in collaboration with Palmdale School District. So there's no other preschools. They're all Head Starts that are only available. So I think that's why parents are like, wait, what other preschools can we have? Because that's really all we have. So it can be super confusing.
Yeah, no, I imagine, yes. So yeah, so there are, there are the school district should be able, well, needs to support your children's needs. So if they don't have a preschool program, they need to find one or make one.
That's true. And even if the child is enrolled in Head Start, Head Starts are not required to provide the related services on an IEP, like speech and language therapy or occupational therapy, or the things that might be part of a student's IEP. Head Start is a federally funded program. I know the Palmdale School District has their own Head Start classes, but they still need to provide the IEP related services to a student, even if they're not, well, even if they are in a Head Start program. Yeah. Okay, well, I want to tell all of you that after this workshop is over, we will send an email to you with the information from this presentation and also a survey I'd like to ask you to please fill out this survey to let us know that you know, how you feel about the workshop. And also I'll send out some information about some of our upcoming events. So I want to thank everyone for being here today.
Thank you.
And I especially want to thank Dr. Wong for this informative presentation for us. So thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who attended. Glad you spent this hour, a little over an hour with us. And as I said, we'll put this recording of the workshop on our YouTube channel in a day or two. And I'll also include the link for that in the email. Okay. So thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Wong. We appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
we'll hope to see you again at another workshop.
Sounds
Bye.
good.
Bye. Thank you.